Welcome everybody, this is SharePoint Patterns and Practices General SharePoint Development Special Interest Group, and this is the bi-weekly sync. It is 27th of June 2019, and we are first time ever in Microsoft Teams in the context of the SharePoint Developer Community Call. So for finally, we wanted to actually test this out until before we have a summer break. I will talk about that one in a second, and then we'll come back in the Teams side in autumn. Seems to be that people are finding the new location and new link seems to be working. That's a good sign that we can make this transition to be successful, and hopefully the recording and everything else will work out nicely. Now, this is the General SharePoint Development Special Interest Group, so we're going to talk about everything else except SharePoint Framework and client-side development topics. To be fair, we obviously touched those as well in this call, and in the chat window you can have a discussion around whatever SharePoint development topics, and we try to always answer and help on those questions as well. Now, we do have another bi-weekly community call, which is the SharePoint Framework and client-side development one, where we then concentrate more on the JavaScript side. And here we talk about Graph, CSOM, REST APIs, PowerApps in the context of SharePoint, Flow in the context of SharePoint, provisioning, PnP PowerShell, modernization, and all of those kind of things. So more on the solution design level rather than on the client-side development level. Now, let me actually activate my PowerPoint properly so I can, the clicker will move. There we go. So today we have a few slides, news and updates from Microsoft, so from our side, and then we're going to go quick recap on the PnP CSOM Core, PnP PowerShell and Modernization tooling status, so what has happened there and what is the latest on those open source initiatives, so you'll up to date on what's happening. Then we'll have a demo from Chaks, which is around getting started with custom forms using PowerApps in SharePoint Online. And so Chaks is going to spend quite a lot of time there. And then another demo from Paolo from PiaSys.com, which is an introduction to new OneDrive community samples. We're going to talk about that one slightly later during that section as well. But basically what it means is that we are starting to collect also OneDrive samples and opening up OneDrive GitHub for community contributions. Slightly confusing, I'll get back on that one slightly later on the discussion today on the potential future direction on these calls and everything else and positioning. But just if you're wondering why are we talking about OneDrive in the context of SharePoint PnP on SharePoint Patterns and Practices, that's because actually I'm not in the SharePoint engineering. Our engineering organization name is OneDrive and SharePoint Engineering. So it's a combined engineering organization, because OneDrive and SharePoint has the same development experience and extensibility model, or the implementation model, the list and libraries and everything else, especially OneDrive Business, is exactly the same as SharePoint. Moving on topic. So first of all, let's actually get moving on some new announcements and new updates. I didn't actually want to remove the slides. This is the classic Microsoft Teams slide, which we used to have on this call in the past, which was around the fact that we will move to the Teams. Now, this call, we are testing it out, like I said, and the new renewed updates and invites and community call setups for autumn, it's actually already using the Microsoft Teams, as long as this is working out properly. Now, if we will have some random challenges and you're not joining on all of these, you might see that when you click the AKMS join link, it will be redirecting to another location or a new software. That might happen at some point. And just a word of a warning, if we decide to move to another technical platform. Right now, of course, we want to use Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is definitely the most reliable platform we know for now. Good. So let's actually move along on these things. Opportunities to participate in the community, and just to recap quickly on those, you are more than welcome to participate on these calls to demo a solution or a technical pattern. In general, we are getting a lot more demo requests for the SharePoint Framework community call, but just to pinpoint this one out in here as well, you would be more than welcome to demonstrate what have you built on top of SharePoint Online using the modern or even classic experiences, and we can talk about those things. It's not about selling a product, it's more around talking a solution or a pattern which you have used, and then we can talk about that one in the call. The easiest way to learn is actually to see something and then really understand how it has been built. So if you have something which is PnP PowerShell, PowerApps, Flow in the context of SharePoint and all of those kind of topics, provisioning, CSOM usage or whatever, or you want to evaluate or have a discussion on the solution architectures, please contact me, Patrick, Bert, or somebody from the core team, and we'll schedule you a seat to do a demo in this course. You can absolutely contribute in GitHub and by submitting pull requests or then adding issues on the issue list, so we are aware of your findings and also help other ones in the issue list as well. So it's not just about reporting issues, but obviously if you know a solution or an answer to somebody's issue, you are more than welcome to participate on the discussion. And most importantly, please keep on providing us feedback. Super important thing, if something isn't working, please let us know so we're able to fix that for you. Or if you don't like something in the modern experiences, or we have gaps in the modern experiences, please let us know so we're able to address those. Now, quick reminder, we've been having this slide on this course for a month. We will have a break on the monthly community calls and SharePoint Dec Weekly, a video blog series for July. And this is mainly because we would be having significant resourcing issues because people are having family breaks here and there. So we wanted to be really clear that during July, no community calls, and we'll restart from the 1st of August. So the next community call is 1st of August, and that's going to be a SharePoint Framework bi-weekly community call. And then we'll start executing using the normal situation. Now, GitHub activities continue as normally, but we are not going to release any monthly summaries during July as well, because there's nobody actually working on them. But then we'll have a big summary on August, what has happened within the past 2 months during the summer timeframe. Well, summer in the Northern Hemisphere, just to be precise. Now, quick reminders on a few links. AKMS SP Dev Docs is the documentation side of the house. AKMS SP Dev videos. From there, you will get this recording as well in the YouTube channel within 24 hours. Typically, we try to push them out in 24 hours. Every now and then, it might take slightly longer than that. AKMS SP Dev issues is our issue list. If you run into an issue, please don't ping me in email or in Skype or in LinkedIn or in Teams or in Twitter or in Facebook or whatever, because that is not actually a scalable solution. Please go to the AKMS SP Dev issue list, explain there what is your issue, and there are people actually watching actively that issue list and helping you much faster than me helping you in Twitter. So that's definitely the fastest way of getting anybody from engineering to help you if you're running into a specific issue around SharePoint Framework or SharePoint development in general. Now, few things, like mentioned, we are on a break on July, but there was basically a suggestion from Andrew Connell that even though the official community calls are on break, we would have a summer camp, or we decided to call them summer camp SharePoint Framework community meetings in July. So these are scheduled to happen in a normal SharePoint Framework community call timeframe. So 3rd of July and then 18th of July at the same time. So those are Thursdays, 7 a.m. Pacific. So the timing and is exactly the same. The details of joining those calls and downloading ICS files is available in the AKMS SP PnP address, and that's at docs.microsoft.com and the community section over there. If you scroll down on the page, you can actually find connection, the information around these things. Now, and then on August, we'll move back on the normal community calls after the, in quotes, summer camps community meetings. Now, like mentioned, we are renewing now the community calls invites. So all of these have been renewed except this particular call. So I haven't renewed the ICS file for this particular call yet. It's going to be available in next 2 hours. So the monthly community call ICS file and the links have been already updated in the community call site and in the AKMS SP PnP, and the biweekly SharePoint Framework invite has been renewed already there. If you download the ICS file, put it in your calendar, it will have an AKMS address to join, and will always redirect that address to the right software and right location. So you will be then joining on the call, whatever software we're actually using. Most likely we'll be using Microsoft Teams in the future as well. And like I said, this particular call, which is the biweekly general SharePoint development call, we will renew that invite within next 2 hours. So immediately after this call, I'll just redirect the URLs and all of that to make sure that you can download the right ICS file. Quick question before we go to the open source status and the demos. Just out of blue, I wanted to have a quick chat on the IAM window. Now that I'm seeing that IAM window is actually quite active as well, try to follow up on what's happening there. Just out of curiosity, obviously we are, as a Microsoft, for us the big things in SharePoint right now is the communication sites. So basically modern experiences and communication sites, as in the portals, and then in general modern experiences, and then obviously SharePoint framework are the areas where we are significantly investing. Just out of curiosity, if we get any items on the chat window in the Teams, what is the number one holding back around moving to the modern? We do know, obviously, we do have quite significant or detailed stats on how much people are using and what are they using. But I'm kind of curious if we can see numerous different new entries, and I can see the video document set in asset library. That's a good point. That's not available. Lack of customizations in modern search makes perfect sense. Luckily, Mikael Svensson is no longer an MVP. He is now actually responsible of that inside of Microsoft. So we'll see what's the story around that one. Content organizers and customizable search. Search is clearly there. No content editor web part. Yeah, makes sense. That provides flexibility. No custom search refiners. The search is there all the time. Main site moved to modern. Okay, cool. Thanks, Mark, for that one. Migrated items. That's always hard thing. Lack of customized search center. Search seems to be the number one thing. UI master-based customization. That's always an interesting one. The UI master-based customization. Well, the master-based isn't the thing. The question is always, what are we missing from the UI perspective? Because if you can achieve the same UI customization without a custom master page, then that's beneficial for everybody. But a difficult discussion, definitely. I understand that there are branding gaps still in the modern. Field customizers and new and edit forms missing, cool. A lack of scripting in modern group sites, need JavaScript. Okay, that's fine. ActiveX controls on basic functions and classic side. I'm not sure that we will introduce ActiveX back, but that's a fair point. It had some good capabilities as well. Now custom columns in highlighted content, steep learning curve. Yeah, that's a fair point. I've been hearing that classic users are concerned that they are losing standard functionality when they adopt the modern. Yeah, it's always, the change is always hard. Massive amount of input. This is really cool. Config flexibility, or no image map, document sets functionality, terms driven mega menu. Development tools are a nightmare to work with. Thank you for that feedback. Lack of modern web parts for lists, calendars, lack of info path, anchors and text. Cool. This is a good set of information, which will help us on again reevaluating different options. Obviously, we are highly aware that there are gaps still in the modern. The modern is catching up on the classic capabilities, but that's really the area where we are actively investing, because we want to modernize the whole SharePoint, and classic has been classic since 2013. So it's looking pretty much like the 2013. So it's now 2019, and we want to modernize the experience definitely. And we are seeing a quite significant movement on moving to the modern, but we want to make sure that that's as easy as possible also in future. MSFT tells us that PowerApps and Flow will be integrated into SharePoint. We're still waiting. Well, they are integrated in SharePoint in many ways, but they will never be part of the SharePoint. And I know that Chaks is going to do some demos on that one today. Infopath, content type hub. Cool. This is really good. Oh, that's a good point. Okay, so we're talking about government clouds. Thank you for clarifying that. I do understand that. Yeah. Cool. Excellent. That's really powerful, really useful input around the modernization stuff as well. Like I said, we're seeing a high uptake on the modernization and modern sites, which is great, but we do understand that we need to still keep on investing on those gaps and functionalities which are still missing. And then the governmental cloud, how would I put it? It's a special cloud. It has certain delays on getting functionalities always available. Let's see if Chaks has any updates on that one when we get to his demos. Now, let's actually move on the quick update on the open source projects. Bert, I think you'll be doing quick intros on all of these because Irving can't actually join. Irving is sick, unfortunately, today. So
okay,
quick
I can handle
entries
that.
in here.
Yeah. Let's do this really quick because, well, not that much happened yet for PnP CSOM Core library, to be honest. So there's the big thing that we already committed in the code base is some Delta change handling for teams. So we have team support as the previous release, and now we adding some more capabilities in that that space. By the way, the next version will be on next week, Tuesday, the 2nd of July, a little bit earlier than usually, due to vacation schedules from both Erwin, me, and other people. So, but it's good, better early than not at all. So, and for the rest, I think we have some progress coming on the data export. And there is some people that want to contribute there and have some really cool stuff. And they're going to contribute that back to the community, and that will eventually be integrated. It's all focused on data export, exporting list items, exporting files, exporting planner, for example. So more of that goodness is to come. PowerShell, so the June release, which was out already, I think back then we added some better support for certificate handling. We did some certificate key cleanup that caused some problems. That was fixed. And then the other major things are all around modernization. So the safe PnP client set, we added a safe PnP client set page conversion log commandlet. So essentially, if you run page transformation, now you can use this commandlet to, at the very end of the run, create one log file containing all logs from all the pages that you transformed in complete session. So you can just wait with writing to the log to the very end, and then you just push it out. And then furthermore, there's some updates to the convert PnP client set page commandlet, additional properties, parameters, etc. And one other thing that we are working on that we actually probably mentioned last time as well, that's around the way to configure extraction of a template and applying of a template. Today we apply PnP provisioning template and get PnP provisioning template commandlets have like a ton of parameters, really a lot of parameters. And with the upcoming changes around being able to export, for example, list items, being able to export all files, all pages, etc., well, you would have to add again another set of parameters here. So you would end up with like a very long, complex command lines. So to avoid that, we are looking into building like kind of a JSON file, like something new, where you can kind of fully define with more details, like how do you want the export to happen, how do you want the import to happen, and just point then the commandlet to this one particular file. So this will offer us more flexibility going forward to have more advanced scenarios. For example, with list item export, we might enable you to just specify a camel query to tell us which list items that you want to export from a given list. So so all of this is kind of preparation for those things coming in the future.
And then let's go to the modernization tooling, quick update over there as well.
Quick update on that one. So next release in July 2nd, we'll have some cool features. We have custom URL mapping. So page transformation takes an old page, wiki page, web page, publishing page, and creates a modern page out of it. Custom URL mapping will allow you to specify, give us a file saying like all these old URLs will have to become these new URLs. So you can really control how URLs are rewritten. If you use a publishing page with a web part zone, in the web part zone, you can have like multiple web parts, and we have customers that especially people using very old portals that put like 5 content at the web parts in web part zone. Now, if they want to modernize that particular page, they have an option now to say like, okay, the content at the web part number 1 goes to row 1, column 1. The other one goes to row 2, column 2. So you can kind of start really positioning web parts which are placed in web part zone in a different spot on the modern page. There is a feature added by Martin Hedge around field overrides. So to give an example, like by default, we'll take the roll-up image from publishing page. That will become the page header image. Now, what if you have not specified a roll-up image for a particular page? Currently, it would get you a modern page without a header. Now you have an option to override, so you can have like multiple fields, and we just pick the first field which has a value, and that will be used. That's really cool. Some options to configure the default quick links settings, and there is some nice scripts from Paul Bullock around scripts that he actually used for his customers to modernize portals. So if you want to modernize your publishing portal and want to get a quick start and grab a script that has been used in real life, just go to our scripts folder in the SP dev. Okay, then Modernization Scanner. Today we released version 2.5. What's new there is mainly being able to detect workflow in InfoPod. So the scanner will generate 2 new reports. One is listing all the classic workflows that are used in your environment. The other one is listing all the InfoPod usage. This is in preparation for you to kind of start thinking about movement towards Microsoft Flow and Microsoft PowerApps. And there is some bug fixes, some small improvements here and there. I think that sums it up, Professor.
Cool. Thank you, Bert, for that one. So let's actually move into the demo section. And the first demoer and the demo person today is Chaks with the demo which we failed to do last time because we were unable to join Skype. So now we're in Teams, so this should help.
Excellent. Thanks, Vesa. So before I jump onto demos, I thought of addressing 2 questions we had in the chat on what is blocking modernization. And one of the things was bulk check-in, check-out. Guess what? If you actually go and check in your tenant today and you have your files checked out, you can actually select the bulk files. Go to this menu, More, Check-in, and put a comment and basically do bulk check-in. And same for bulk checkout. So that's already there. And you should try out. If it's not working, let us know. But this is already we rolled out to prod this time. The second one was GCC comment. GCC things are going to be slower because we have to ensure everything, the guidelines and everything is met. Right now, the PowerApps and Flow backend, meaning that you can go to the GCC websites to go build PowerApps, to go build Flow, and then from there you can connect to SharePoint. We're doing the work. It's almost done in this month, I believe, so we can test and start the rollout for the SharePoint integrations on the GCC tenants. GCC High is going to be later in the year, but we have to ensure several pieces come together. So it's very different to us rather than just looking at the normal Office 365. So it's not getting late. It's making sure that we do the right things for these the government tenants, right? So we are taking ensuring that every service that comes on board, every service that we depend on, is getting there in the right way for our customers. So I'm going to go into the demo. So today I thought I would start something around how to get started and how to change few things and perform common tasks in custom forms. So custom forms is the new way, basically the modern way of customizing list forms. We have invested heavily in partnering with PowerApps, working as one Microsoft. In fact, this week we have a customer event here and meeting several customers, and we've got awesome feedback, as great feedback around custom forms. And all this feedback is going to help us make the experience better, provide richer support. Like, I know there is questions around ALM. I know there's questions around moving forms. I know there are questions around it's not really that simple for makers, but things are getting into our backlog. We're looking at all the things that we want to simplify. But in the meantime, PowerApps is really powerful. It's just that there is some usability issues. Maybe you're thinking around how to go about it. Maybe you're thinking around where to start. So I thought, let me give some examples and a flow, as in how do you go approach those problems, and how do you really approach customizing the form with various scenarios. So with that cleared off, let me go here and show you how to start with custom forms. So you have a list here. You have several ways to start. You can go to the PowerApps menu in the command bar and then click Customize Form. Or if you actually click the item and open the item in view here in the panel, you can also click Go to PowerApps. So I'm going to click Customize Forms, and as you might have guessed, this is not available for everyone. It's available for people, users that have the ability to manage list, in this case, a list owner. So I do Customize Form. It's going to load this page. It's going to take a few seconds. And keep do posting questions in the chat because it'll help me to just look at, and while it's loading or doing some manipulations, I would be able to help you guys as well. So what happens by default is it takes all the view, all the columns in the view, and then puts them in the form here. And it kind of gives you a studio where now you can see some of the gestures here. On the left, you have a tree view. On the right, you got some fields pane, and then there is some property pane on editing, some controls as well. But as soon as you click, the fields and everything disappears, right? How convenient. Let's start from analyzing what is here and how do we get to that field pane and start doing things. The first thing is the SharePoint integration piece here, right? So the tree view is something that you're looking at. You're going to be scanning there, and you're going to see this SharePoint integration. This is a key piece that is telling PowerApps that all of the customizations I'm doing in this is actually related to a list form in SharePoint, right? So if you click this, and then here on the property pane, if you click advanced, you will see some actions defined here, which are basically on new, on edit, on view. And this is giving some, indication that this is going to be for the list form when somebody clicks new item, when somebody edits an item, or when somebody views an item, right? And if you click more options, you get more on what happens when you save, what happens when you cancel, right? So here you can put your own expressions if you're a pro maker. I have to use the term because sometimes makers doesn't need that you need to write expressions. But if you're a pro maker, you can write some complex expressions here. So you can have abilities to, not save items unless there is something else figured out in maybe from some other data source, right? So that's the basic of how this custom forms is related to the list form host in SharePoint to do all of the operations. The other interesting thing here is that the form itself, right? So what it does is by default, it builds a screen that is able to be hosted in the list form, and then it adds a simple form control. And this form control, if you click on it on the property pane, you can see that it's already associated with the list that where you wanted to customize the forms and where you actually came from. And you can also see here in the properties pane, or if you go to the view and there is a data sources panel that comes up there as well, you can see the research project list. Now, if you want to add any other data source, you can always click add data source and add it. Say, for example, you have another list where you want to bring information and collate both as well. You can do it here as well. So obviously now the real question is, how do I edit these fields in the form? How do I edit the different reorder and do some basic things in the custom form, right? So everything is related with this SharePoint form. Now, if you expand this, you will see all of the controls added here, but not as controls, but as data cards. So SharePoint PowerApps today has this concept of a form control is made up of different data cards with which you can customize the elements that go into each data card. And that data card is associated with whatever the data mapping that you have in your backend. So if you look at the title data card, for example, it has something around star visible, which you can see that it says it's required or not. And then you have error message, right? So if there's any problem, you could use this label to display an error message. It has the actual control, the element. In this case, it's naming as data card value because that's the thing that you would have to go look at if you want to get what's the value of this title, right? And then you got the actual key, which is the label for the field that we just mapped with the SharePoint, the display name of the field. So the first thing you have to do if you want to really manipulate the fields here, which is really not convenient, I would say, but here is how you could do it. Click the SharePoint form, and in the property pane, you got this option called Edit Fields. And that is where the pane comes up when you click on it, and you get the field summary of all the things that you have here in your form. Now, once I go here, you can see I can actually drag and drop. I can rearrange. I can put anywhere I want, right? So I can bring the effort at the bottom, and boom, it's now changed. I can also say I don't really want this attachments, and I'm going to remove it, right? Great, so I can remove that back. I don't really want sign-off status. It's not something I want to show when people actually edit forms. I can remove that as well, right? And if I want to add again, let's, for example, I want to add the sign-off status back. So if you click Add Field, you actually see all of the field types here that has been brought from the list. So you can search quickly for sign-off and then add it back. Right, so now that will get added here. So let's remove that. I really don't want it here for this form. And the other thing you can also do is that when you look at the SharePoint form in your property pane, one of the key things to really understand here is that as soon as you click anything in the form, the property pane changes to that context, right? Pretty simple. But you have to click on the form or use the tree view to click on the form to get back to the form properties. In here, you can see that there is several options here. You can have vertical layout. You can have kind of the horizontal layout if you want, simple layouts here. You can also choose how many columns you want, especially important if you're going with the horizontal layout. And also there is a default mode. So this is the form mode. So if I say edit, what happens is it becomes the edit mode. Now, since we came from SharePoint, it takes the default, the first item that is there in the SharePoint to show you an example of how the edit form would look like as a preview mode here. You can always click the play button to also preview in PowerApps, but this is not the actual preview of the form, how it looks in SharePoint, right? So I'm going to click the form again. And now what I have done is I've set the default mode to new. It really doesn't matter. Consider this as something a maker would decide to see how the form looks in new, edit, and other modes. But when it comes to SharePoint, if you have seen here in the SharePoint integration piece, if you go to advanced, you can see what happens on new. We actually call the form modes directly and open the form in that particular mode. So it doesn't really matter that if you set the default for the SharePoint form to be edit or new, it actually is also handled in the runtime to open the right thing. But the cool thing here is that now you're in the new form mode, you can do some specific things that you want to do for new form, right? So for example, this title is empty. Maybe I want to put some text that I can enter here for people can see what they actually can do, right? So if you come here in the properties pane, when you select the actual text control for the title field, there is some options here in the properties, and one of them is hint text. So here I can say, please enter a title, right? And then there you go. So now you get, actually, you don't need the quotes. So now you get the placeholder text for the title. So you can actually do these things for specific control sets. Now, one of the key things is for the date control, right? So you do want to set some default value for date when the new form opens up. So you can do that here as well, but it's a little bit tricky. And this is where the usability piece comes into the picture, right? You go here and you look at the properties in the property pane. It's like, well, I don't have the option to set default values. I don't have the option to do some more stuff with review the date control. But if you actually click advanced, there are lots of other properties here that are not available in the properties tab. So some of the things are, if you go look at the data for the date control and expand more options, you can see there are lots of options here, right? So the first one is format. So you can say, I don't like the format I'm looking at. So I'm just going to say date time format dot, I don't know, let's say long date time. Oops. Right, so it'll show Monday, December 31st, 2001. So you can change that format here. You have that opportunity here. And something else that is really, I find it very kind of very useful one is start here. Every calendar you pick, sometimes it's like set to 1999, 1901, right? I really hate that. So with the start year option, I can actually set this to 2016 or, you know, I don't know, 1982 or 2018, right? So the user can start the calendar from that start year and end year as well. You don't want to end it in 2050. Maybe your the solution is only valid for the next 3 years. So you can simply use expressions as well, which is today plus 3, right? So from today, and you get the year, and then you add 3 years to that. That would mean whenever the form opens, 3 years from now is the calendar date that you want to show, right? So those are some really good options to actually look at. Now, one of the things you can see here is that I want to change the default date value to be today's date, but you can see it's actually grayed out. I can't really change things here. So one of the things you see here is this property cannot be edited while the control is locked. So I really don't know how this lock and unlock happens with forms. But one of the things I know is that users really don't like this, right? It's like, hey, I'm in the form, I'm editing it. Can you please let me do the things I want to do? So one of the things to remember is that when you are editing with controls, today, what you have to do is you have to go select a control and then go to the advanced and then unlock to change the properties. So click that lock button for the control that you're editing. And this is per control and actually per data card. So that's something you have to do for every data card control in your form. I know this was really not an ideal experience, but this is also something that we're looking at to improve and have ability for users to do a lot of stuff here very quickly. So now you can see that I got a lot of stuff here enabled. And then if I actually go to the date, I actually have default date here. So in the default date, what I can do is now I can write expressions, right? So I can say if SharePoint, now we can write it here. If you feel this is really small, you can also see that as I started typing the expression, I got it here in this expression board where you can actually get more width here, right? So if all I want to do is if SharePoint form1 dot mode, right, is equal to form mode, which is what I'm looking at, is new, right? So if the form mode is new, then I want the default date to be today, right? Otherwise, I want whatever it is getting from its parent, meaning that from the data source. If you click edit, there's already a date on it. So you click view, there's already a date on it. So I want that to be the default if it's not a new form, right? So now you can see it has already reflected here in my control, right? So this is how we can work around with setting default dates, or this applies to any other field here, right? So depending on the form mode you want to do, or you want to set certain values to that particular field. So that's the kind of a view around how you work with the controls, the data cards, and things like that. Now you can do a lot more, right? So you can actually go to the owner, and this is a data card, and you can see that you still have to unlock. So we do the unlock, but I want to add more stuff to it. I want to add a picture so I can actually show the owner picture besides the control, right? So to do that, what we have to think about is where are we adding this picture, right? We are going to add it with the control, which is bound to the owner. So here I have the owner item, right? So if I go back to my form, and now I set my default mode as edit. you can actually see there is a owner associated here, right? So inside this data card, I want the image control because the image control needs to be bound to this user. So if you see here in my tree view, here's my owner data card. I can go insert and I can basically add an image, right? So now that image is added inside the data card here. And obviously I can change the size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize that. Since this is inside the data card, I can actually control everything here. Right, at this point, I'm just like making sure everything works. I can also expand this a little bit so there is some spacing there. And I can select this control, right, the image, and I can easily now say that this image, which you can see here in the properties, is none right now. I can add an image file, right? So let me add an image file here, which I downloaded, which is a blank profile image, right? And as soon as I do that, I get a blank profile image. And you can see how it actually changed here. Now I'm using my assets that I have in custom form in my computer that I uploaded, and I'm using it here to point to that particular image control. But this is not the experience I want. I actually want the value of the user that is selected to be part of that blank picture. Maybe this is something I want to do when I actually open a new form, just like how we set the default date, right? So what do we do now? We have to go write expressions. We don't have an expression builder yet in PowerApps, so we got to go and get dirty with our Excel-like expressions in PowerApps, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make sure that I have the name for this. So that is data card value 7. Right, so that's the control that has my name of the owner and the details of the person selected. So I'm going to click my image here, and I'm going to say if I'm going to use some functions is blank, right? And that is, so as you type, you'll actually get the IntelliSense, right? Data card value 7, right? Dot selected, right? So if that is blank, I want to show the blank profile picture, right? If not, I want to go to the data card value 7 dot selected, right? And then you can see I actually get every IntelliSense of the property of the person control from SharePoint. So I can display picture, right? Now I close the, yeah, there you go. Now I close the thing, and now you can see I actually got the image of the picture. But it's, so now if I go to this form and change the default mode to new, you can see I got the blank picture, right? And if you actually want to test this, you can actually go find, a user here, Nestor, and now the image is now changed to Nestor. And I actually delete this, you can actually see it goes back to blank. Now that's pretty simple, right? If you know exactly how to go do this thing, this has become something that you can repeat everywhere in your project, and you actually know how to go do this thing, right? The other thing I always find is people complain about, hey, this is square, I don't like it, I want to make it something round, right? So all you need to do here is go to this border radius, and let's say we put 15, right? And then there you go. So 15, maybe 25. And now if I go back to my form, edit, you can see that it's actually round. So you can control those things to in your properties with that image control specifically. So and yet again, if you want to add more things to this form, right? So for example, you click the form, you saw edit fields, and when you click add fields, everything here was from SharePoint. What if you wanted to add your custom fields or something that is part of the form? Let's say you just wanted to add a header to the form, right? So you can do that. There are two ways. You can basically shrink this form and then add your controls here in the canvas, right? But I don't really like that approach because then I'm building something that is not part of the form. So I go to the form, edit fields, and there is an option to add a custom card when you click the ... menu. And you click that, you actually get now a custom card. So now I can push that custom card to the top, right? I can basically here, come back here, make sure I'm selecting the data card, insert a label, right? And I can here say beautiful custom form. I can do some things. I can go here. I can fill the color to be a theme color. And then I can select the theme for the text color as white. I can move around in the data card, make it something that I can fit to the screen. I can reduce the size for that as well. I can even go and say, well, I will put the center aligned text, and boom. Now I actually have a form that is visible here with some custom controls. And you can put any control here. It could also be something that's coming from another data source, right? So now all I need to do if I want to push this form to SharePoint is you can go to File, you can save and publish, or if you just want to click back to SharePoint, you'll have the option to save and publish your changes. So now that I can do that, and I actually, will get the PowerApps will publish this and open the list. And just to make sure things are good, you do another refresh. And now I click New. It will actually load the custom form with all the stuff that we actually made, including the default date and the default image that I have put here when you don't have anybody selected here, right? And if you actually click, you can see that it's actually giving you the view form. If you edit all, you can see it's still actually using that image. And if you see the date and then actually click here, it is using the configurations we said, 2018 and then 2022, 3 years from now. I don't have to deal with the 1901, 2001 dates, right? So that's great. So that's the basics of getting started. I will do some more demos as we come off of our summer vacation. So I'll go deeper into how we can do some other scenarios in custom forms.
Excellent. Thank you, Chaks. Thank you very much. Really, really useful stuff for getting this shown and recorded as a getting started model as well. Because I think every now and then we forget about the fact that there's always new people coming in and then they don't know how to get started on these technologies. Now, thank you, Chaks, on that one. We do have 9 minutes or 10 minutes. So, Paolo, let's jump on you. Let's do a quick intro on what we have released in the OneDrive side. And then we'll definitely come back on those samples later as well after the summer break. We'll book enough time for the other ones. So thank you, Chaks, one more time on that one. Just quickly introduction on the OneDrive and why are we talking about OneDrive? Just to recap this one in here, our engineering organization is actually called OneDrive and SharePoint Engineering. So OneDrive and SharePoint as part of the same engineering organization, and that's why they overlap quite heavily from an implementation and API perspective as well. And now, it might be that sooner or later we need to come up with and we'll probably need to replace a SharePoint PnP with a more generic name, and then we'll use that naming as the terminology for all of the community calls which we're executing, rather than having a SharePoint PnP and OneDrive SharePoint PnP and so on, because that's highly confusing. Anyway, as part of the SharePoint, we talk about Graph, we talk about Teams development, we talk about PowerApps and Flow development and OneDrive development. So it's much bigger term from that perspective. But Paolo, will you do a quick intro of what we have here, and then we'll close up after that. Thank you.
Sure. I hope you already see my screen. Please let me know.
Yep. All
okay,
good.
Cool. So sooner or later, we will come up with a Microsoft 365 PnP, most likely, but that's my guess only. So let's talk about the OneDrive community samples. In the github.com/OneDrive organization, we have a new repo called OneDrive-community-samples, which is the container of right now 5 new samples that we can use to learn how to develop using OneDrive and SharePoint, and specifically using the APIs which are available both for OneDrive and SharePoint in Office 365. The samples that we have right now are, first of all, an example about how to leverage the Delta functionality or the get changes functionality that we have in Microsoft Graph to detect changes in a library, either it is in OneDrive or in SharePoint Online. Moreover, we have an example about how to create a file handler. I really like that one because it shows you, and I will show you that example in action, how you can create your custom preview for items stored in OneDrive and SharePoint, as well as how you can provide a custom icon for custom file types that you could have in your own environment. Moreover, we have an example about how to play, actually a couple of examples about how to play with file pickers. Either you're using .NET Core or the classic SharePoint framework, as well as an example about how to use the Graph API to search for files in OneDrive. And last but not least, a universal Windows platform application to play with the content that you have in SharePoint and OneDrive. And when I say OneDrive in this specific scenario, I mean OneDrive for Business or OneDrive Personal. So just to give you an idea of what you can find in these examples, I will show you one, which is the file handler example. And first of all, I want to give you a pointer to the official documentation about how you can create a file handler for OneDrive and SharePoint. And basically, you simply need to create a web-based solution which will have to be registered in Azure Active Directory as a custom application registration, and which will have to be able to manage a request, which will have in the content of the request in the for body of a post request that will be target your file handler, a bunch of custom parameters, including, of course, a reference to the item that you want to preview in your custom file handler. And if you build a web solution which is able to process, to parse this kind of post request and give back to the user a preview of the document, you will be able to give to your end users an experience like the one I'm going to show you right now. Here I have a OneDrive for Business library in which I have a .pnp file, which most likely you know is the extension that we use for the PnP provisioning templates. And this is precisely the example that you can find in the OneDrive community samples. And if I click on this item and I open a new tab, or even in this tab, I can easily show you that we can have a preview of the content of the .pnp file, which is right now just showing me the list of templates that I have defined in my .pnp file. And this one is the PnP file for the SharePoint Starter Kit solution that we have in the SharePoint online provisioning service as well. But the overall idea is to let you know and learn how to create such kind of solution for your own file extensions, registering your own custom icon for your files. Just to give you an idea in few seconds, this is a solution based on ASP.NET. We simply have a controller, an MVC controller, through which we parse the content of the HTTP body request that we get. And based on that one, we simply retrieve using the PnP core library, the content of the file. And first of all, we get the actual file using the Microsoft Graph client. So we use the Graph SDK to get the stream content of the file which is stored in OneDrive. And once we have done that, we simply use the PnP core library to open the file and to get the content and show the content of the file. But of course, the inner workings of the file handler is not really important. It is more important that you can use, for example, the Microsoft Graph SDK inside your custom file handlers. And in order to use such kind of handlers from a registration perspective, you simply need to go to the portal, Azure portal, go to Azure Active Directory, get the app registrations and register a new application. And that new application will have to be configured from a manifest perspective in order to be an add-in or to support at least one add-in for OneDrive, which will be the extension for the file handler. And here we simply declare that we provide support for our SharePoint PnP format. We provide the URL of the icon that will be used in the UI of OneDrive, as well as what is the URL of the file preview handler. Of course, this is targeting my localhost machine because I am in a development environment. But if you fork or if you get the source code from the GitHub repo, you can, of course, change the solution and publish it on your own target publishing environment and register your preview handler with the proper URL of a production system. And this is just an example that you find under the samples folder of the OneDrive community samples in the ASP.NET file handler solution. But as I said, there are many other solutions that you can find there. And this is an open source repository, as any other repositories that we have. So feel free to contribute, and every contribution will be more than welcome. I think that's it for today because we have just a few minutes, but maybe in the future we can make some other demos about some other samples that we have in this repo, Vesa.
Yes, absolutely. So I took over. Thank you, Paolo, for the quick intros as well. So I took over the presentation. So definitely we'll talk about those samples and whatever community samples might be there in the future in this course. If you, as an attendee on this call or a person watching the video recording of this call, would be interested on contributing on that repo, to submit a pull request, we'll process that, and then you can volunteer definitely as do a demo in the community calls as well. That is a great way of getting exposure to the community, and all of the demos will be recorded and they will be available in the SharePoint Dev YouTube channel. This recording will be available in the SharePoint Developer YouTube channel within 24 hours, so tomorrow, roughly at the same time or latest at the same time. And you can find that location from AKMS SPDev-videos. And that's probably the easiest way to do that, or www.youtube.com/SharePointPnP is actually redirecting to the same location as well. The next SharePoint Dev the general SharePoint Special Interest Group call meeting is on 8th of August. So we will have the July off from this calls, and the next SharePoint Framework Special Interest Group is in the 1st of August. The invites, the calendar invites, recurrent calendar invites are now expiring today. If you have any of them, and this is the last one which is expiring, so we'll renew them, and they will have them an infinited end date. So we're moving to this infinited mode with the invites, and then we'll just manage the AKMS URL links in the future. So you don't have to renew any invites after the new ones which you install in the ones which will be now available in the AKMS SPPNP site. But thank you for this one. Thank you for joining. Apparently Teams worked out quite decently. There was a really active discussion on the chat window, which is really good. So we're not losing that. I think that's one of the key value propositions of this course. People are getting support on their questions in this course, and actively we're trying to help everybody on this course as well. But that's it for this spring in the Northern Hemisphere. Thank you. If you will have a summer break, if you're living in Northern Hemisphere, enjoy that. Have spent some time with family. We will definitely do that as well. We'll be absolutely back in business latest in August. And I will be working still for a while and then taking a few weeks off. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for great demos, Chaks and Paolo, and we'll be definitely back. Bye-bye.